Alrighty, good evening, everybody, and welcome to an early episode of GameSense this week. We're doing it on Monday because all of our Pacific Northwest friends are going to their district championship in just a couple of days. So thank you for watching us a couple of days early. So first off, we want to thank our sponsor, Symbotic. Symbotic is a warehouse automation company based out of Wilmington, Massachusetts. They've been a great sponsor to us. To learn more about them, go to symbotic.com. So first, I'd like to introduce our hosts today. To my right, we have Ty Tremblay.
Hey, guys.
Joining us once again for the first time in probably a year or more is Stephanie Morrison, out from behind the camera. Welcome back. Also, we have Ruth Toomey. And our special guest this week is Greg Needel. Greg, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey, everybody. I don't know. This is my 15th year in First. I'm currently mentoring Team 2848. I've mentored a bunch of teams around the country, and I don't know. I'm still having fun.
Awesome. You can't complain about that.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So thank you for being on the show, as always. Before we go too much into the show, though, I want to let everybody know that we're going to do a Q&A after the show with everybody here. So if you have questions for us, just if you're on Twitch, if you're watching on Twitch, just type it into the chat. Type !Q, then your question, and our chat bot will pull it in and send it to us. And if we like it, we'll answer it live on the show. Also, we don't take ourselves too seriously, and we hope that you don't either. Have fun, and if you don't like what we said, go out there and prove us wrong. This week on the show, we're going to go over the biggest little show in First, the Waterloo Regional, as well as how the game is going to change or be changed as we start the district championship and championship season. But first, let's go around the horn and see one thing that each of us saw this week at competition. Greg, what are your observations from week 5?
Yep. Stronghold is all about playing defense. And if you want to win and you maybe don't have the best shooter out there, you can play defense and win.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting to see. Actually, I think it was both district events up here in New England were just flat out shootouts. It was just all three teams gunning for it and trying to score as many points as they possibly could. And when these games are being decided by 5-10 points, you wonder, what could a little defense have done?
Yeah, absolutely. So, did you see anything else from this week, Ty?
Oh, hey, look, I'm next, Kobe. So seriously, after watching Waterloo and watching the week 5 events and watching these teams that are out there for almost their definite second time around, and they've really dialed it in, this is in the running for my favorite FRC game ever. It is an absolute blast to watch.
Legit. I like it too. All right, Ruth, what did you see this week?
I think a lot of people are starting to get into go big or go home mode, and there are going to be a lot of teams, a lot of robots where we haven't even seen their final form yet. There are going to be a lot of surprises, I think, rolling out this week, and between the regionals and the districts that are left and the district champs, we're gonna see a lot of new additions this week, I think.
Sweet. All right. Well, what I saw this weekend is that IRI is going to be absolutely sick nasty. I know it's kind of early to be thinking about that, but I can't wait to see an event where you could have an alliance of 3 extremely, extremely good teams. I think that's going to be a sight to behold, just like it was in 2007 and 2006 and other years too. Steph, what was your sight from this weekend?
I saw more red cards, and I saw my first red card in person, which was not fun. And I in fact saw 2 in the same match given to the same alliance. I hope we don't see more going forward, but I feel like it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah, well, it's one of them things, unfortunately. But all right, so let's get started with our first topic of the night. This has got to be like the thing that everybody in First is talking about, which is, of course, the Waterloo Regional. So for those of you who don't know what happened exactly, it was the Waterloo Regional, I would have to say, is probably the most competitive regional this year, I would say, so far at least. And if not that, it's probably one of the most competitive regionals we've ever seen in First. What do you guys have to say about that?
I mean, I agree. I think that when you get a really great, a really hot pack of teams that are all going there, especially at a small event where you see a lot of interplay of the best teams. I mean, what was it, 148 and Simbots played each other or with each other 4 times during the qualification rounds. I mean, you see a lot of action in the quals between a lot of good teams, and it's gonna be fun and exciting the whole way through.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's something that I went to the inaugural Waterloo Regional back in 2005, and they had 27 teams, and I thought, oh, maybe they just need to grow the area a little bit more. But they've maxed it out at 30, which is incredibly small for any first event. And yet it's probably, like you were saying, and I was thinking, the most competitive event I've seen in a long time. What does everyone else have to think?
Sorry, I had something caught in my throat. I just think it's really crazy. You know, you think about, when you think about robotics, you think about, you know, Boston and you think about Silicon Valley. But in first, when you think about the best robotics, you think about Silicon Valley still, but you think about Canada too. And I really think that that's really awesome how Canada is really supported first, and why I think that's a major reason why this is so competitive is because all these teams have gotten this great support, and now they're all playing in their home region, which is, you know, it's kind of rude to say that Canada is a home region when it's that massive, but you get the idea.
I think maybe Ontario would be a little bit more contained, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean it's interesting. Maybe Greg, you work with the 148 guys a little bit more. What was the rationale? Do you know? Have you heard from them why they wanted to go up to Waterloo?
Well, I mean, I used to be on 148. You know, we're kind of local rivals at this point, but you know, 148's mentality, and I think a lot of teams, you know, 118 has the same thing, and you know, we all want to play with the best, right? You know, and so there's one thing about there are definitely teams that roll into parts of the country where they think the regional is a little weaker, where they can like take a mid-level robot and come home with a blue banner. But there are teams that want to go and they want to play with the best every single year, and they want that competition. And some of it's just to prepare for champs, right? Like, you know, a lot of teams, and you know, my team, you know, we're not nearly as decorated as 148, but we still kind of have that same mentality where when we go to the championship, we want to try to win the world championship. I mean, everybody goes in with that mentality. Yeah. So you can go and get a blue banner at some event that I'm not going to insult, you know, but
clever.
Or you can go and play against the toughest teams in the country and actually know what it's going to be like in the heat of the battle. And if you can go in and come out a winner in there, then you can play with anybody else in the world. And if you go and you know, fall down, well, then you go back to your shop and you keep working. And when it's time for champs, you're a little bit better.
Yeah, that's something I noticed. Especially, I think it sort of started with like 254 going over there. Is that all these really good teams going up to the Canada area, because for one reason or another, it appears that 1114 and 2056 don't travel out of Canada except for the championship and IRI. So the only way you're going to be able to play against the best is to go up and meet them, basically. So, yeah. Now I got to say, this all being said, I think SVR is going to be quite a show this weekend too. But we'll talk about that, I think, later on in the show. Let's move on to sort of our next bit of talk, still on the Waterloo topic here. Is the match play we saw in the eliminations of Waterloo was outstanding, especially from the top three alliances at the event. So the question is, what is this? Does this look like Einstein? Are these the kind of plays we're going to see on Einstein? Is it going to be better? Is it going to be worse? Steph, I want to hear what you have to say about that. Don't roll your eyes at me.
No, I'm not rolling my eyes.
I know.
I rolled my head, not my eyes. I don't know. I think it's similar. I think it's a step along the evolution, the path that we're gonna see. I don't think we're there yet. I think we'll see. I don't know. I think we'll see another evolution for sure. I'm just not sure what that is.
Ooh,
I'll tell you one thing I really, really hope we don't see on Einstein is that finals one match where you've got this epic clash of 4 Titans and then one of them is unfortunately dead on the field, and I really, really hope it doesn't happen on Einstein.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's kind of unfortunate that 1114 had this issue that they had and weren't able to do it. But I got to say, I think that the what we've seen at Waterloo, especially now that we've seen other teams from outside of Canada go up there and sort of the Canadian teams rise up to the challenge, is that there are tons of teams that event that are playing at a very, very high level. The only thing is that they don't seem to have that next tier below them of teams that are sort of able to support a lot of these alliances, especially mostly because Waterloo is such a small event.
Yeah. I mean, so to chime in on this one, I think that what you saw at Waterloo is not going to happen at Championship.
Ooh.
I think that this is where I think defense is going to come into play here. I mean, if you look at the Waterloo finals, and those teams will have to forgive me, I don't know who the third picks on both sides were, but they were playing defense, and they were doing it in a not so effective way. One of them, the interesting thing I saw on that was the Blue Alliance third robot was actually playing the neutral zone defense. They never even stepped foot in the red courtyard. And then, the other one, they're chasing around the robots head to head, but they weren't stopping that many shots.
Yeah.
And so you get these high scores, but you basically had two of the top tier teams on both sides shooting at will. And so at Championship, where you have 30 teams in a division that were fairly successful, winners, alliance captains, finalists, and your third robot defender is going to be someone who was taking it to the hole at their regional event, I don't think you put up those types of scores.
Yeah, I'm definitely with Greg on this. I think that Einstein is going to be a lot bigger and a lot smaller in terms of scores when we get there. We're going to see a lot of defensive powerhouses introduced throughout quals, and I think that's really going to shake up what we're kind of seeing overall. There are definitely going to be more defensive plays, smarter defensive plays that we're going to see on Einstein. I think people are going to be better at being assertive rather than aggressive on Einstein. We're not going to see those scores.
So are we going to not see those scores, or are we just going to see the scores on coming from those teams that can't be blocked from the outer works? In other words, and in certain ways almost, can't be defended if they're very smart at driving. So is this going to create some sort of let them eat cake scenario where you've got a bunch of teams playing good defenses and then the best teams just don't care?
That might happen. The first thing is, I don't see anybody shooting from the outer works at the same accuracy level they're shooting from the batter at the moment. Even the best in the country are missing shots from the outer works. And so that will get better a little bit, but not significantly. The other thing is you do exactly what 3560 did at Waterloo. You play the neutral zone defense, and you just slow down the cycle of balls. I mean, for me, when I break down games and look at it, it's all about points per second, right? So it doesn't really matter where you slow them down. If you take a few seconds off in the middle, it's the same as taking a few seconds off on the outside, and the defense is just going to move. And so, they go in and take their shot. But if you look at the fact that 1114 and 2056 never had a defender in their courtyard at all, right? And we're still beat. Regardless, I'm talking about the final match where nobody died. Yeah. They were still beat, and it was just nudge them a little bit, take a second off the shot. Nudge them a little bit, take the second off the shot. And you do that, it's going to come down to one ball or a hang or auton score or something, and that's going to be the difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually that brings up another concept is, are we going to start to see a mad sprint for the balls in the middle after autonomous? I think we're already starting to see the beginnings of it.
I think we are. Actually, that's a very good point, is that if you looked at the Waterloo matches and the final matches there, we definitely saw that balls were hard to come by when it came to the middle and the end of the match. Teams were being very smart about holding them, and the balls that were in the middle at the start were incredibly important about getting them, holding them, and scoring them as quickly as you can and get as many in.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Auton routines that return you back over the defenses to the middle will be just as important as, Auton is going to be the thing that tips you over the score. And so if you can be sitting there in the center, in the neutral zone, ready to pick up your second ball while the other team is 10 feet away on the other side of the defenses, you're going to always have an advantage.
Right. And I think we're also going to see a bit, again, ball starvation, not like we saw back in what was it, week half at Palmetto. 179 was seeing ball starvation in the secret passage. We're going to see ball starvation in your own courtyard. It's as simple as bringing the ball in and dropping it, and as long as you can see it, it's going to be so much harder for the other lines to grab that ball back from you. So I think we'll probably see that popping up as well.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we sort of touched on last week a little bit. That's important to note is that we see a lot of teams, if they score and miss, their drivers are trained just to go and get the next ball a lot of times if there are open balls in the courtyard. And that's actually really, I think it's kind of one of the sort of hidden tactics, hidden gems here is that, like, if you miss the ball and it doesn't go off the field, if you shoot it the right way, it'll go stay in the courtyard, which is basically means that you're going to score that ball later, because it's very, very difficult to move balls out of courtyards into the mid zone and out of the field. You basically have to hope that you can push it into the secret passage and then get it out of there later on. And actually, something I noticed, I think this is why they were doing that. Don't quote me on this, but if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But you see a lot of robots line up on the non-secret passage half of the field and shoot into that corner goal there. So they have plenty of space to maneuver. And when they miss, the ball is far away from the secret passage, so they're able to pick it up and score it later on. I think that's why people are doing it, because you'll see some teams, like 125, for example, they'll park dead center in the middle of the courtyard to score, whereas 1114 and 2056 kind of rotate that 45 degrees off toward the side of the field.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think I'm right about that, but I could be wrong. We'll have to ask them, I guess.
It could also just be because of the low bar.
Yeah, we like to score on the open side of the field. You know, our drivers have a higher accuracy, and it's twofold. One is it is the low bar and it's faster, but the other one is actually the berm. You know, for robots, like, we're long configuration, and so with our intake down, which it would be out towards the secret passage, the actual berm can actually affect your shot.
That's true.
Like, our intake hits it, and I think there's a lot of teams that have that situation where they're interfacing with that steel bar on the field, and it's just kind of tweaking what you can see.
Interesting. All right, cool.
I think the camera on your driver station is going to become more of a thing as the fight for the balls in the middle becomes more important as well. I know that we noticed it on our team. Like, it's really hard to see the ones in the middle if there's a sally port out there or one of the other tall ones. Even the cheval, it's going to be a much bigger deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being able to get those one or two balls easily that the other teams can't see is, you get every advantage that you can.
Yeah. Hey, and if you have that big camera on a stick after you win your event, you can do a Super Mike Corsetto 25-foot selfie too. All right, so we're going to move on to the next topic here. We're still talking about Waterloo because it was such a crazy event. Let's talk about those other Canada teams. So for a very long time, it was, 1114 and 2056 are the best teams in Canada. Then they were the best teams in the world. And now we're starting to see these other teams like 610 and 1241 and other teams that have happened in the last few years come to the forefront and actually play on the same level or greater than these perennial powerhouse teams. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I don't want to poo-poo on the idea, Francis.
What?
But so 610 and 1241, and I feel terrible saying stuff like this, but I'm going to do it because I'm an honest man. 610 and 1241, they're great teams, right? They make great robots. They're still probably in the top 1% of robots in the world. But I think what we're seeing right here is between 610 and 1241 teaming up and beating 2056 and 1114, we're kind of getting jaded a little bit. I think 1114 is taking a little bit longer to get into their prime than they did back last year, where they just came out and dominated the field from the get-go, and everyone was like, why didn't I think of that? So I think what we're seeing is a combination. I don't want people to confuse a combination of a slightly off year for some teams and an amazing year for other teams. I'd really like to see consistency before I can say that the temple of the best team in the world for me is about to fall.
Oh, maybe I should rephrase what I said. I think I actually wholeheartedly agree with what you're saying. I'm not saying that 610. That's not saying that 1114 and 2056 are old and busted and these guys are new hotness. what I guess I would say is that if you look at like teams in Canada for a long time, it was basically very few teams had a shot at beating those two.
Yeah, like
right?
you have no idea
now,
how frustrated. Sorry, go ahead.
And now there are at least 2 or 3 other teams that, if they get together, can put up a legitimate challenge to 2 of the best teams in the world.
Yeah, for example, like Team Dave 3683,
Yeah.
they're a great team, and for so many years they've gone up against the 2056 and or 1114 combo, and they've been in the finals, and they've just not been able to push through that barrier. And that's tough, because it's almost gets to the point where you're in Canada and you're like, okay, do we play with these guys, or do we try and pick the regional that they're not going to go to?
And yeah, I'm totally. So there's a couple things to this. One is, I think the game plays each year, and I think that this is a game that has recent history, and where 2012, 2014, there's a lot of recent lessons learned that you can directly apply. So the gap might just be a little bit smaller. This is not to take anything away from those teams, but it's just the gap between the super top and that second tier just might be a little bit closer than it normally is. And I mean, we actually have the exact same thing here in Texas, right? Like, everybody in the entire first world knows who 118 is. They know who 148 is. They know who Kryptonite is, but they don't know who 4063 is. They don't know who my team is. They don't know who, there's a whole handful of, 3005, the Bronc bots. I mean, there's a whole tier of teams that's just like behind. We always get beat up by 118, 148, and Kryptonite in most years, and it's, we just keep having to push ourselves, and that actually, we love that, because it's kind of like it puts a little chip on your shoulder, and you try a little bit harder. And I think that there are some years that play to different teams' strengths. I think that there's more COTS available that make teams better and easier, and I think that naturally people will continue to evolve. And so maybe it's not that they're losing what they are. Maybe they're always at that constant level, but it's a lot harder to push to become that extra 1% better when you're already in the 1% versus when you're at the 96% trying to reach 98. I mean, so and so I think that might be where we are, where we might be at the time, and I think it's happening in a lot of regions where the second tier is just getting closer to the top, and the top to some degree doesn't have that many places to go.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of jump on that. It's been at least a couple years since we've really seen just a couple standout teams in New England. The top has been completely shaken up, at least this season. I think we're seeing a lot of people that we wouldn't normally see. There are a number of teams that are getting their first blue banners this year, and again, part of it is the game. I think another part of it is you spend enough time playing with some of the best, and you're definitely going to get better. And it's still going to surprise people when you come out and you're on par with them or better, but everybody's going to rise in quality when you're playing with the best.
Yeah, and I think that a really good example of this, you can I think we're kind of naming tons and tons of examples, because I think Greg hit on a good point here, is that a rising tide floats a lot of boats. If you have a goal to achieve and a target, not to say a target on a back that you want to hit, right? But if you have a team or a goal that you want to reach toward, you can do it. I know that 971, for example, they've won a world championship. They've won tons and tons of regionals now, but for a long time they were not terribly great. They won one regional prior to that, but otherwise had a lot of really bad years. But they got their act together, saw what they could do, and decided to strive toward it. I know that Stephanie, in the Pacific Northwest this year, there's been a lot of teams sort of come up from sort of not being known as the most popular team. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think at first I attributed it to the district system, and I think that's had a huge part in it. And the like Greg mentioned, the more availability of COTS parts that like from Vex Pro that you can buy and just I mean, my team, we built our whole robot from Andy Mark's Kitbot and VexPro. Like that's it. And we went out and won a district. So that, I think the combination, the teams that, I think we've said it before, like most teams only go to one regional, but in the district system, your one entry fee gets you 2 events, and that has raised the sort of middle tier in the Pacific Northwest a lot. Just giving them that extra play and playing with your robot twice as many times as they're used to. So I would definitely agree.
Yeah, one of my favorite phrases is from the infamous 148 mentor JVN, John B. Noon, as continuous incremental improvement. And something that's really something that the district model really lets you do is you're no longer building a robot for 6 weeks, playing in 8 to 10 matches, and then waiting for the next 6-week period back in January. You're saying you get to see what you missed on, you get to see what you can improve on, and then you get to do it all over again. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so we're going to talk about the last thing we've got going on here did somebody move
Waterloo.
the topics on me? Yes, sorry. Last thing in Waterloo here. So we've got Team 2056. They had their big streak. I guess set would be a good word to put. You know, you can't ever be upset when a team makes it to. You can't really be upset when a team gets a finalist award. But Team 2056 this week, for those who are not sure, did not win the Waterloo Regional, which that sets the record of having won the most regionals in a row at 23, which, by the way, is absolutely incredibly absurd. Mm-hmm. I can't even. I've done a little bit of research because it's really hard to do, but I can't think of another streak that's gone on for more than 10 regionals in a row. Even going to 23 regionals and winning them, even winning 23 regionals at all is a sight to behold. But it's off the chain.
Ooh, that's something I'm going to do tonight. I'm going to go through and look at the percentage of teams that have won less regionals than 2056 won in a row.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's got to be a lot.
It's going to be 90 something.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the very least, they were a rookie in 2007, so they've gone through this is their 9th year, right? So they've gone through over 2 full rotations of students. If you were a freshman on the team in 2007, you could have your master's degree today, right? And still, they've managed to reach this high level of consistency and excellence.
Yep.
How do they do it? Anybody know? Anybody got any tips? Please tell me. I'm looking.
Well, it starts off with that really, really great jump start of being able, and I think, don't count me wrong because it's been a long time since 2007, but I think that they started off with help from either 1114 or mentors from 1114.
They started as a triplet, right? So they were.
Were they?
They were
Okay.
one of the Symbot triplets.
I thought that was 1680
right.
and 1503.
I thought that 2056 was one of the triplets or twins as well.
Chad,
Well, anyway,
please correct us. You can do it anyway.
One of the best teams in the world helps you if you're there to get even just a modicum of advice from 1114, then you're off to a great start there. And really, if you can get that head start, look what it does. Hey, 1114. Next time you start a team, let's see how many regionals in a row they can win.
Yeah. Well, the other thing to note is that a lot of their early success was that they were basically the second best robot at their events, and that 1114 was by far the best. So a lot of their early regionals, they kind of, not to say that they couldn't have won them against 1114, but they definitely had a much easier time in the beginning by basically riding with 1114 to victory. I think I think that the Blue Alliance has this number on there, but I think it's something like 14 times they've won with 1114. That's a crazy pair up.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
They were not a triplet, by the way. The chat has totally corrected me. I was wrong.
See,
the triplets were in 2006, and they started in 2007. So my bad. Sorry.
I hate to correct you, but I only remember those numbers because I was doing pit scouting in Waterloo in 2005, and all those robots were next to each other. So I was like, "Oh, that robot. Okay, this robot. Oh, well, that's weird." And then, what's going on?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's important to state very clearly that 2056 is hands down and has been one of the best teams in the world, and they're not just riding on the coattails of 11.
Well, that's the thing. Not anymore. Certainly,
Right.
they've gone and become a force to reckon with on their own, regardless of anyone else's input.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that them not winning a world championship is kind of one of the greatest travesties in the way that FIRST has worked itself out. I think they will win a world championship soon. I think that, I said last week they're due to lose it. I say this week they're due to win a world championship at some point. So
the Oracle has spoken.
Don't say that. I'm wrong more than I'm right.
Yeah. And the number of successful team ups between 1114 and 2056 is 17, which is also way up there, kind of ridiculous.
Not bad. So I guess with that, congratulations to Team 2056, and congratulations to everybody else who played this weekend who was not at Waterloo and did well as well. So we're going to move on to, I think, our next topic, which is not about the Waterloo Regional. We're going to talk a little bit about how everybody's robot is old and busted at this point and breaking left, right, and center, including some of the top teams in FIRST you would not expect to have that happen to. Greg, do you want to start us off on this topic?
Yes, it is. This is a hard game. I mean, it's hard on your robot. It's hard to play. I have seen at the events that I've been more random things breaking on robots than I think ever before. And yes, you always will get the same, oh, my chain broke, that type of thing. This game is shaking loose things like main battery cables and soft breaker switches and all sorts of weird things. And it really just comes down to, this game is rougher on robots. I mean, you have robots doing Dukes of Hazzard style over defenses. I can't think of another game where teams were quite literally flying through the air like this. I mean, does everyone remember 118's video from 2010? Mm-hmm. Their reveal video at the end, it was, watch out for flying robots as their robot crashed into the driver's station, and everyone laughed because they assumed that that's never going to happen. What the heck's going on? Well, no. Like, I'm standing by the field at Hub City this weekend, and I'm watching teams quite literally get 2 feet of air over the rock wall, and stuff's going to break, especially teams that, for example, not using pneumatic wheels, right? Pneumatic wheels are acting as a suspension, but you get really great robots like 3310 Blackhawk who die on the field. They're using hard Coulson wheels. Some electrical connector pops loose. This is a tough game, so it's your pit scouting. Your pit checklist before your match should be longer this year than ever before, because you're going to have to check things that you can normally just forget about.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
For example, we had to make sure that we still had teeth on some of the gears that power our big beefy arm. And we had to deal with that in finals up at UNH. We actually 319 had to take more of the defense crossing responsibility so that 1519 didn't accidentally break a few extra teeth off of their already broken gear and then not be able to shoot. So yeah, I had a question for you, Greg. Since you have one of the companies and that makes commercial off the shelves components, is this game, like, when you saw this game, were you like, oh crap, we didn't design for something this crazy? Or, can we get a supplier perspective on this?
Sure. So first of all, we didn't design. Well, so let me back up. We don't design. So Rev Robotics does not design solutions. So we're not in the solution business like some others are. We don't sell gearboxes. We don't sell. We do some linear motion stuff. But so designing for the game, worried about that. I wasn't that worried about it. I was worried about some teams using, the last few years, it's been really popular West Coast drives with tubes, and we do stamped sheet metal brackets, gusset plates, and all sorts of stuff like that. I was very worried about teams using those to hold their chassis together, especially with pop rivets, because we put robots together early. We had a field built, like within the first day of the season, and we were destroying stuff left and right. And so I was worried about some of our parts. I haven't heard any reports. It's also a interesting year to launch a motor controller during one of the roughest games ever. That had me nervous. Fortunately, haven't had any issues with there, but it is a concern. This year, we were fortunate. Us, Vex, and Andy Mark all got kind of a slight heads up. We didn't get any real specifics about the game, but we just kind of said, you're going to be climbing over obstacles, you're going to be hanging, like that stuff. So, we hope that we will continue to design parts that can stand up to any game, but I don't know. I mean, I really hope that no team has lost their regional because they picked a part that wasn't designed for this type of game. I mean, I know it's not specifically rev parts because we don't build stuff that's that system critical on the mechanical side, but there are some notable things that people got away with in 2015 that I'm pretty sure we're breaking in 2016.
Yeah. For example, some of those, some of the plastic hubs screw it, those Andy Mark hubs, in any game up until now, they're bulletproof. And then all of a sudden you're dropping 150-pound robots from 2 feet into the air at full speed and they break. And, that's not to put any bash on any mark. It's to say that this is an absolutely brutal game that I don't think anybody was expecting how rough it is.
Yeah. Well, also the, motor power is off the charts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this is, if, we talk about this all the time and, I cannot believe that, I was thinking that before this year and maybe that motors and things like that were going to be reined in, but there were going to be less options with a little bit less power.
Oh man.
And then you turn around and you get stuff like the Vex 775 Pro that's just as powerful as a sim, and essentially you're limited on sims and that's it. I mean, so you basically have a motor that's the same power as a sim that you can use as many of them as you want on your robot. I mean, it's going to be crazy. I mean, at some point,
back in my day, we had drill motors and we liked it.
Oh, I did some throwback with some people in the pits, and I was like picking up photos from my 2003 build seasons and 2004 build seasons, like old Bosch motors and like molded housings and stuff like that. And people were like, "We don't even know how you built robots in 6 weeks."
Is that a drill? Why did you put a drill?
What is that?
And then there's the Mabuchi motor.
Yeah.
Well, that's not like there. If you want,
I still will never forget the. And I still have one here somewhere in a box in my garage, but the original sim motor with the integrated metric spline. It wasn't a worm gear. It was a metric pitch gear right on the shaft. And in 2002, they gave you the actual mating gear to it, like a hat gear to something else. So you had a chance of converting because it was a gear that didn't exist. Everybody ended up just taking shafts, drilling them out, and pressing them on and pinning them and hoping for the best.
Yeah, I think I've seen some of those in the recycle bin over here. But I mean, back on the topic of robots breaking again. I mean, you guys have said it, and I think do you guys think there's like Greg sort of mentioned this? Do you think that there's a bit of a underreaction because we had a game that had almost no contact, and teams maybe didn't think that they had to secure the robots as well? Maybe they were cheating a little bit. Not actually cheating, but they were sort of skirting the edge a little bit too much, and they kind of got used to it.
I don't know, Francis. Any controls person worth their salt is always going to make sure that wires are secure and electronics are secure. I don't necessarily think that this is entirely human error. I think part of it is that maybe we're really putting these pieces to the test.
Yeah, I know that one of the things that I saw happen locally here is that it's one of the big issues was radios. Radios, they don't have a good way to strain release the cable. If you're not careful, it's especially if you have a crappy Ethernet cable running to your robot, it's very easy to have that thing pop out or come loose for a moment, and then you're waiting for your radio to reset and reconnect, which doesn't take as long as the
Ethernet cable do it.
A brand new Ethernet cable?
A brand new one that we know was clipped in. That
Ouch.
was no longer clipped in after 3 matches.
Damn, that's brutal, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing I've noticed a lot of is serial power connectors, either on the serial or on the a PD board, because that's like the weakest link on the robot that could happen, even though it's screwed down. But
And it's like almost physically painful to see robots like 148 do the flip hang and then just reveal all the battle scars on their belly pan.
yeah,
going over.
It's seen some stuff, man. Yep. All right. Well, hopefully that IRI will be awesome. Hopefully these robots make it all the way to IRI. We'll see. I think we're ready to move on to our next topic here. And so, for those of you who don't know, the Pacific Northwest and Chesapeake District Championships are this weekend.
Peachtree as well, right?
No, Peachtree is next week. I believe.
the third?
David said it was next week. So, oh shoot. Okay, no, I remember what I was talking about. So, as per the rules, you can raise the first is allowed to raise the strength of the towers before the district championships during the most recent update, which would be tomorrow. So, Ruth, why don't you start off our discussion on if that could happen, should happen, what are the implications of it, and why would they do it?
So I'm going to start off with throwing some numbers at you. So far, teams have played over 19,500 matches.
Well, it's 19,500 towers, right?
Oh, yeah, sorry, 19,500 towers. Thank you for that correction, Kai.
Got you.
19,500 plus opportunities for captures. And so we're not talking 3 robots on the batter or scaling or whatever. We're just talking having the tower at 0 or less. And we've only seen that happen 2,895 times.
Approximately.
Approximately.
Cheating, of course.
Who's counting?
Who's counting?
The
Yeah.
API.
So that's a little bit better than 10%. So if we bump those numbers up to, simulated tower strength is 9, running off of those same numbers from all these events that teams have already played, we're looking at about 1,700 possible captures, regardless of whether or not there are robots on the batter. And if we bump that up to 10, we're looking at about 1,000. I don't think we're going to see the towers drop this week. We'll find out in the next team update. I haven't seen it come out yet this week. I don't think we're going to see a bump this week. There's nothing in that rule, as far as I can tell, that they won't change it between weeks for district championship. I think we'll definitely see a bump for championships, but I don't know if we're going to see a bump this week.
Whoa. You hold on. Hold the phone. You just said that we're going to definitely see a bump for championships?
I think we're going to see a bump for championships.
Bold predictions,
No.
gentlemen.
All
No,
right.
no.
So,
I think we'll see a bump to 9 for championships. I don't think we'll see a
9.
bump beyond 9.
Is that
So-
is that because you like perfect squares, or
I mean,
okay?
so
but
we had a little discussion about this before the show, and Greg brought up some good points that I'm going to let him bring up as well. But basically, on this data that Ruth mined, we've seen about 15% of the towers have had the opportunity to be captured, as in, maybe teams didn't get on the batter. But if we increase the tower strength to 9, that cuts that in half, basically. So we're going to see about half of the tower captures than we were, assuming competition stays about the same. Now, Greg had a great point for that before our discussion. And Greg, what was that point?
So my point to this, and the reason I don't think the tower strength is going to change, is how many teams. So the data on, if you just say how many teams actually dropped the tower and then scored 8, a lot of teams are dropping the tower and stopping, right? Which is super risky, because if you get a foul at the end, you lose it. But there's a goal. They score 8 balls, then they go and park. Take your hands off. You've already won the match. I mean, if you run the data on teams that have dropped the tower strength, challenged the tower, and breached the defenses and lost matches, it's pretty small. Like, okay, in elims, it definitely happens, like in finals, but it's super small. But I think most alliances that can do 8 could do 9. And from a separation standpoint, all you're going to do is you've got this whole group of alliances over here that can drop the tower strength at Park, and you've got this whole group that doesn't. And there's a gap in the middle in terms of point value. If you increase the tower strength, all you're going to do is move this gap up, and the top 1 or 2 or 3 alliances at championship or at the district events are still going to do it and still get to get the points, and it's going to be a blowout in the finals. Instead of 200 to 210, it's going to be 210 to 185.
Interesting. I mean, I'd actually be really interested if we could see how your intuition pans out in data. I mean, because I know that there are a lot of teams out there that do exactly what you say, but in New England, in the New England area, when I see captures happening, people just keep scoring a lot of the time, whether that be because they're just bad at reading the live score or what have you, or looking at the tower. But I think I do tend to agree with your separation statement. Is that I think that bumping the tower up, if it happens, is not going to really change too much as far as the game is concerned. And I think here's the other thought I want to ask and bring up is what would be the purpose of bringing up the tower, right? Is the goal of the GDC to reduce the number of captures and to keep it a low and rare occurrence, or do they want to increase the number of captures and see what happens? I'm not sure which.
I would think at this point they would want to see more captures and see really close matches. Everybody wants to see a finals determined by 1 ball, or they hung at the last second and that made them win. Nobody wants to see, oh, well, they won 210 to 185. That was kind of less exciting.
Womp womp.
Right. Like you'll get those diehard fans in football, for example. You get those diehard fans that love those grind them out defensive battles where a touchdown is a rarity. But then you also have those just absolute sling fests where it's something like 50 to 50 and you're just seeing those touchdowns, and those are a complete blast. And honestly, one of the main reasons for college football over national football is that they do score more, right? And you have those events and you get to see them doing more things. So I think the excitement of the capture is not as important as the excitement as the whole match. And so I think that really points to what Greg just said is I want to see teams win in the last second, or I want to see 200 to 200 matches. I don't want to see teams going to try and get that one last ball so they can win with a 25-point margin.
So now, so to talk about what we were saying, maybe Ruth can answer this first. What would you need? What would they have to see at a district championship to want to bump it up for the championship, like you're saying?
I think that the real thing, the real issue that we're going to see with this is the ranking points in quals. Yes, there's the excitement factor in the eliminations, but we're going to see it as it's really going to be a test to see who are going to be the best teams out there. Not to throw 319 under the bus, but you guys got 6 or 7 captures in a row at UNH.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Just 6.
Just a minor accomplishment.
But we're starting to see a lot of that now. Teams are on their second or their third plays. There's no way they're going to let that fly because it's going to come down to too many tiebreakers, and nobody likes to see rankings done on the third or fourth tiebreaker. They're going to do it to thin the field, thin the top.
So you think it's too close? You think that as teams get better, It's going to become too close?
Right. So I think that they're going to up that difficulty. If not at district champs, then definitely at world champs. You're basically hitting that higher level. It makes sense to increase that challenge. And I think this is one of the. Do they always build this in?
They have since 2011 at the mini-bot fiasco.
Yeah.
So I actually like your perspective, Ruth. I think that adding it for quals is a thing that I hadn't thought about. In elims, that I always think about what's elims going to play with at championship, and I think that my perspective comes from that, where you say all the best alliances are automatically going to get it if they want to be competitive. But I think you're right. At regionals, you're seeing the top teams are the ones that are blowing everybody away by getting 4 captures or 3 captures. I mean, 33-10 at this event that I was just at, they had locked up the #1 seed because they had gotten 3 or 4 captures through the event, and like they could have like not brought their robot to the field in the last match, gotten 0, and still been ahead. So if it does become more common at championship, that might be a reason to do it, to guarantee that your top seeds are the best robot, as opposed to it being a float where you're going to have a Scorcher at the top of the alliance selection list. So that's a valid point.
Right. And I'm also going to make a point to kind of what you guys were saying earlier, and also because I love football, you really want to see people play to the whistle, play until play is done. And again, it's definitely no fun at all when people are sitting on the batter with 5-10 seconds to go. There's so much that can still happen in those 5-10 seconds. We've seen a lot of last second batter shots or last second low scores that have gotten the tower down, and that ends up being a huge swing for the match. But the other alliance was just sitting on the batter. Raising the tower for the purpose of the limbs is going to make teams play to the whistle. It's definitely going to make it more exciting in the limbs.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I can say that as a drive coach for my first year, as I get a phone call, as my first year as a drive coach, there's nothing more frustrating to me that I didn't expect than someone just giving up and not playing the rest of the match. I've had robots sit there and literally spin, have one joystick all the way forward and one all the way back, and spin exactly where we're trying to score a goal, and we ask them to move and they just go do it somewhere else. Or I've had drive teams do lunges next to me in the driver's station.
Lunges? What's a lunge?
Like exercising.
Oh, Francis.
Oh, sorry, I don't. Oh, wow.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I don't know what that is because I don't exercise. Da-da-da, you know it
But
now.
I don't know. I just,
Yep.
even if you don't think you're gonna win, why not play till the end?
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I think that that's going to bring up to our next topic, and one of our final topics for the evening is, now that we're getting into the district championship season, Team Apex is going to be playing there at the Pacific Northwest Championship coming up real soon. Stephanie, why don't you give us your perspective on how to seed high at these events, where the competition is going to increase, and how you think the PW is going to play out, and then we'll go around the horn and talk to everybody else.
Oh man, those are. I think the first question is, I think it's simple to me. I think you're gonna have to capture. You have to win, and you have to capture.
Yeah.
And you have to breach. I mean, you just have to. I don't know. It's just simple, right? You just have to do all the things.
Do it all.
And get all the points, and you'll be fine. No, but I think there's not going to be very many, if any, robots that cannot contribute to a breach. But and that the only thing that is going to differentiate teams is whether or not you can secure the capture.
So that being said, none of the things that you said involve shooting high. So
Correct.
are we going to see district champs in which, and we saw it in week 5, or at least we saw it in week 5 at up here in Boston, is we had the #1 seed was a low goaler. They can't even shoot high. They literally can't even.
1058 has won 3 district events this year without shooting a single high goal.
Right, exactly. So are we going to see that at district champs? Are we going to see these teams that can get 6, 7, maybe even 8 low goals and just power on through, most likely winning because they're getting 8 goals in a match, power on through, get those 4 ranking points, and then seed high? And if so, what's going to happen when we get to eliminations?
I think we might. I think in the Pacific Northwest, we have some, but we don't have a lot of shooters that can put in that obscene number 8 or more low goals, or high goals, like our low goalers can. The interesting thing is we don't have any, or we at least don't have many. I can't say we don't have any. We don't have many high goal shooters that have a scalar.
Yet.
Yes. I know I saw one new one this last weekend. But that's going to be a big thing, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Pongo. Pongo agrees.
Yeah.
But I think that, I don't know, it comes down to the difference. If you're a low goaler that gets through seeds high, but you have a scale, you do have something to ward off the high goalers.
Yeah.
But is it enough?
I think this goes back to something Ty kind of mentioned, which is kind of extremely simplistic but very deep at the same time, is that the points don't matter if you win, right? So if you don't score on the high goal during your qualification rounds, it's okay, assuming you can beat everybody else, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to play 12 matches at your district championship, if you can win 10 or 9 in a draw, and then get your breach and capture every time, you should lock up the number 1 seed pretty reasonably. But the key there is that you have to be able to win. And I think that you're going to see kind of what Greg was mentioning, is that defense is going to come into play. So you're going to have to try to do that through more defense. And if your match schedule doesn't work out in such a way that you end up with people who can pick up for you when you get defended, then you're going to find some challenges that you may not have found. Because I think, especially at the district championships, defense is going to become a thing. At most districts and some regionals, you don't play any defense during qualification rounds because you're focused on getting your breach and trying to get a capture and putting up as many points. But when it comes to being selected on the big stage, you have to show off what you can do. You have to show it off more than just one match on your last day of the event.
Yeah, and actually that brought your point of my point brought up a point of my own.
Yeah. Word.
So we've got these teams. We've got a few teams, some of the top ones in the districts that are going to be at their district championships, that have added high goal shooting to their repertoire since their last event. But they got to the top of their district on the backs of low goals, right? So are we going to see these teams basically just go with what they know will get them the capture and low goal, and then maybe just turn the high goal on when they know that they've got the capture, or maybe even not even do that and just turn the high goal on when they get to eliminations and they know that they've got a partner that can score half as many or just as many as them? So is that something that's possible?
That's a good point.
So this was actually right into my point that I was going to make. So good job.
It's on points,
Ty.
baby.
Yes.
It's like we're on a team or something.
Yeah. So one thing I've noticed, and I don't even want to venture whether this is good or bad or right or wrong, but one thing I've noticed in the PNW is that high goalers go high in quals. They don't try and low goal and try and get more balls in for the capture. In a limbs, they are much more willing to low goal until they know they have the capture and then put in high goals. And it feels a little backwards to me. My robot's not a high goal shooter. I haven't spent that much time thinking about what I would do if I had a high goal shooter, but I think I would do it the other way around. I think in quals you can't rely on as much help, and you want to be securing that capture for your ranking points. And in a limbs, you can rely on your partners a little bit more.
Yeah, so I say you always want to show your best, right? And winning is important. I'd say, like, obviously, we go high, but I also think that there's an amazing ability to score a lot of balls in the last 20 seconds of the match because they're all sitting in the other team's secret passages that can't be defended. So, like, we do a lot of steal theft at the very end of a match if we're short. But I think that's a huge point. But if you're a high goal shooter, I agree that in quals you got to win, right? And if you're like, I can tell you right now, we're faster at going the low goal, the low bar cycle into the low goal than we are at the low bar cycle into the high goal. That's why my drivers are practicing like an hour and a half, like 4 days a week right now. But I think that's a thing. But I think that in quals, you have to make sure you try to get the capture whatever way you can. So I totally understand that strategy, and maybe some people just aren't transitioning from their qual strategy to their elim strategy nearly as effectively as they should.
Yeah.
So my other point about hangers, which is something we're going to see, and we saw it at Waterloo, and it was very, very subtle, the 5th defensive crossing. right?
Oh, yep.
So the Blue Alliance crossed the 5th defense and got the extra 10 points. Now they won by 10 points, right? So
Dun, dun, dun.
if you don't have a hanger and you've got a little bit of time and you can do the spin-a-majig to knock out the Sallygate, or you can do a cooperative drawbridge, whichever one you see, those are 10 points. You don't need them for the bonus, but especially if you're talking about your third robot, or any robot that can play effective defense can do the spin, kill the Sallygate by itself, and those 10 points will come into play at champs for sure.
Especially if that defensive robot can't, if that defensive robot doesn't hang, they can do that in the last 30 seconds after they leave the opponent's courtyard and gain a pretty good amount of points.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, in Dallas, we ran out of balls in one of our matches, and we just went and did it to keep putting points on the board because we ran out of balls that we could easily get, and that was an easier 10 points than trying to do 2 runs to the high goal. It also differentiates a missed auton shot too.
That's true.
So is that to think? So now are we going to see no Sally ports in the eliminations at World Championships or in the finals of the district championships because it's that easy to get those 10 points? Are we going to just see drawbridge? People are going to take the visibility hit and just hopefully deny 5 or 10 points from the other team?
I shouldn't have opened my mouth. I wish I could.
Damn it,
No.
Ty.
I think everybody hates the drawbridge.
Yeah.
And I think that you're not going to see it because everybody hates it. It doesn't matter if you've got a camera on a pole or not. Nobody wants the drawbridge out there. It's just terrible.
I think the
Big
drawbridge,
flappy wall.
Yeah, I think the drawbridge is what caused those two red cards in the same match at Auburn in finals match 1 because audience selection was the drawbridge right in the middle.
That's a really mean audience.
Yes, it is.
It happens in New England because the thing about the audience is that they're not always strategic. They actually like the way the drawbridge looks because it's cool, right? That's the problem. Right?
I could tell you, I was emceeing it at Hub City, and every time we went out there to do audience selection, whichever one was on the board, it was the easier one.
Yes.
It was the rough terrain. It was the Sally port. It was actually our portcullis was broken, so it was not an option. We lost 2 of them early on in the event, and because it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday event, there was no ability to get more constant force springs. So it was not an option. But other than that, it was just like everybody wants the easy ones. Nobody wants a screwed up sight line. And to be honest, the top tier teams, which defenses are out there, it really doesn't make a difference.
Yeah. Yep, you're absolutely right. All right, well, it's been a good show so far. Let's wrap it up here, and we'll go to shout-outs for this week. Let's start off with Ruth. You're first on the shout-out list. Who shout out to this week?
Oh, geez. This week I'm shouting out to 1678. They're playing at SVR this weekend. Are they going to make the three-peat this year? Fingers crossed,
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Steph.
3 robots, 3 wins, maybe?
There you go. Steph, what's your shout-out for this week?
My shout out is to 2056. Everybody's talking about how they lost their first event ever, their first regional ever, and I think I want to see them start a new streak. What's the next one going to be? So good luck, 2056.
Yeah. All right. So Evan, he is currently at an Apex meeting. Stephanie skipped it to be here and do GameSense with us, but Evan did go. So Evan's shout out this week is to Apex Robotics Team 5897. What? From Western Canada. They're playing literally right now. Western Canada Regional is a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday event. So they're playing now. They got the same name as Apex. Good on them. Also, fun fact, if you're a big fan of watching first, you could have started watching on Thursday this past week all the way through Sunday. Then starting today is Western Canada. They'll go until Wednesday, and then picking up more events starting in this coming Thursday, all the way through to Sunday. So you could have had, if you're a diehard First fan, there's been like a 10-day stretch of events in there. So hope you like this game because there's a lot of it going on this week. My shout out is to Team 971, Spartan Robotics. They're going to be playing at SVR 2. I love this team. I love how they decide to basically make the most complicated robot they can and pull it off and do crazy, crazy stuff with it. And I think that they're going to do even crazier stuff coming up at SVR. I don't have any inside info. But it's going to be sick.
Sorry. I'm so sorry.
What were you saying,
Interrupting
Ty? What were you
so
saying?
much. It seems like that entire robot is in fast forward.
Yeah, basically. It's in fast forward, and it was like made to be like a toy, which is awesome.
That's
But
really
anyways,
great.
Ty, who you giving out this week?
So down in the cheese district, I'm shouting out to 2363 Triple Helix. They've got two. They've got two districts under their belt with two #1 ranks, a winner, a finalist, and a district chairman's award. And they've got some big improvements coming to step their game up even further. So I'm excited for what they're going to pull off down there.
Sweet. All right, last but certainly not least, Greg, who's your shout out to for your episode here on GameSense?
So my shout out is to our friends in Texas, Team 624 Kryptonite. And they're going to be playing down at Houston, which is always a tough event. And we are all hoping that they punch their ticket to the World Championship. Third event of the season. They've got a really decent robot, and we want to see them play at the championship.
Awesome. They always do great, and I feel like this is unfortunately the second time this, or at least the second time this has happened, where they've gone to a third event to try to get their way to the championship.
Yeah, I think they were going to 3 the whole time, but coming off the season they had last year, I'm assuming that they thought that they were going to have it at the first event, and then they didn't get it at the second event, and so now in Texas we all are friends and we all want to see each other at the big show, and they're right now they're like the missing slot on the Texas rep board in terms of qualified for champs, so we want to see them there.
Awesome. Alrighty, well, that's going to do it for our main part of the show. A reminder to everybody watching live, we're doing a Q&A right after this. So if you have a question in the Twitch chat, type !Q followed by your question. You'll see right down below there the instructions. Just go ahead and do that. Send us the question, and if we like it, we'll answer it live on air in just a few minutes. But before we go to our short break, I want to say a huge thank you to Greg for coming on the show. Greg, you've been a fabulous guest, and thank you for coming on, even on a Monday after flying back from your emceeing appearance at the Hub City Regional this past weekend.
Well, thanks for having me. I love to talk first, so this is a joy,
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I gotta say, back in the day when you used to do First Cast,
Yep.
you and your program were one of the things that sort of inspired how we decided to do GameSense. So thank you for doing that way back in the day.
Yeah. Well, First Cast was a blast for a really long time, and there was a whole crew of people behind it.
Yeah.
Some of them actually don't do First anymore. I don't know how they got away, and I'm still here. But those phone calls and those podcasts. We didn't know video back then. Was just I guess there was video, but not like this.
Yeah.
You guys are way more prepared than we used to be. We used to just get on Skype or a phone call and just talk for 2 hours. So props to you guys. You're taking FRC Media to the next level.
Cool. Well, that'll do it for this part of the show. Again, we're going to take a very quick break. We'll be back in about 5-10 minutes to answer some questions. Again, send them in via the Twitch chat because we want to hear what you guys have to say. So for now, we're going to say bye-bye and see you in just a few minutes.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye all.
Alrighty, everybody. Welcome back to the Q&A portion of GameSense here. We're going to start off by reminding everybody one more time, if you have a question for us, in the Twitch chat, hit !Q, type your question in, and it'll send it right to us. And if it's not a terrible question, we'll answer it on air, hopefully. All right, so we're going to start off with our first question of the evening. Steph's putting it up on the screen right now. So the question is, does defense coming into quals at the PNW hurt low goalers and batter shooters enough to affect their seeding?
Ooh.
Who wants to start this off?
I like defense.
All right, go ahead,
Yep.
PNW.
I like defense too. And I think it will actually come into play. And it might be match schedule dependent on which teams are going out there wanting to play defense, and less dependent on which teams should have defense played on them. But I think it will come into play, and I think that there are more high goal shooters and low goal shooters than not. I think most of our ball scoring robots in the Pacific Northwest have not had defense played on them yet.
That I agree
And
with.
that is why I think it'll have an effect, because they're not used to it. Not that they can't play around it, they're just not used to doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So my question for you is, are teams that qualified for your championship event, qualified through doing well at the district events, are they ready to give up trying to score and be an alliance captain themselves to go play defense?
Some of them, but not all.
So I mean,
Do you
this
know
is
of
the
one?
this is the catch-22 with defense in quals, is that if you are the defensive robot, especially when we get like to championship, those teams have to basically commit to the fact to say, it's better for me to stop another team from scoring balls than if I just score balls myself.
Mhm.
And that psychological conversation is something that's actually very hard to overcome.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's easy to make that decision when you're up against like two powerhouses and you've got like no chance to win. But I think if the match is a general coin flip, you're probably still not going to see defense until elims.
Yeah, it's always as somebody who's coached as well, it's always hard to sort of get teams into that mindset. You're absolutely right. It's hard to get people to see that, like, we're going against somebody who can score more points than you. If you stop them from scoring, you would be more worth to the point total at the end than you would be otherwise.
Yep.
And the other thing is that situation actually has to occur. And I think that at the district championship, it could occur because you have a lot of teams that can score lots of points. And there are, when it gets down to sort of like the teams on the district championship who are at the lower end of the point scale, a lot of them don't have a ton of offensive potential. They're certainly no scrubs by any stretch of the imagination, but they're not power robots that can do crazy stuff like that. So if you end up in a situation where you have two high scoring teams on one side and maybe one or two high scoring team and another team that's not so good, I can see defense being played, but it's one of those things you got to get in that mindset. And especially if you're not from New England where we like defense, then it can be a little challenging.
Right, and sort of a little question on the tail end of that. If you're in a region like maybe New England who has really heavy defense, you get to world champs, say, and there isn't as much defense being played. Is that going to be the same fish out of water effect, or are we going to see, a huge spring up in performance from some of those teams that have been seeing heavier defense at their districts and district championships?
It's a very good point. Very good point. All right, I think we're going to move on to our next question here, coming up. This question asks, a little bit different, not quite so much gameplay. Should wild cards continue to be distributed after the entirety of the finalist alliance has advanced, so as to avoid unused wild cards at competitive events? So if you don't know, wild cards are basically generated when a team that that gets a spot at a regional and already has a spot to the championship, that goes down to one of the finalist alliance members who would not get a spot otherwise. So, Greg, you're actually the only one on this show that is still in regionals. So I want to hear from you first on this.
So, okay, so first of all, I'm a huge advocate for the district system. Anybody who's in Texas knows that. And so, when do we want districts, or what do we want districts? When do we want it? 2017. But so here's the thing for me. Texas has 4 regional events. We have 24 slots. We've got for qualification to champs. We've got more than 24 really good robots that we would love to send to championship every year. And we do send more than that because teams go play in Utah and all sorts of other places, right? And then win and get their spots. But you know what? I'm all for robots playing, and I would rather see the captains of the semifinalist alliances at World Championship than waitlist teams. And so, to me, pass them down. You got to come up with a fair way to do it, because it's like, all right, once you pass the finalists, you got 2 semifinalist teams. How do you decide which one of the alliance captains of which semifinalist gets it? And then if you've got 2 to pass, do you give it to the captain of one and then the captain of the other? I mean, there's got to be rules structured about it. But look, we're going into a world where this year you have 600 FRC teams at champs. Next year, we're going to have 800 FRC teams at champs. Spread the love around. There's always going to be more teams that want to play at champs, that have good robots, that get shut out because of a limited number of slots.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail right on the head with this, is that it'd be great. I think that you want to do that. I know that when it was a smaller championship, 400 or so teams, that it was mathematically impossible to put all of the qualified spots in the event. But now that there's at 600, we've got tons of waitlist teams coming on. I think that there's a good ethic. I don't want to say ethical because it kind of elevates it too high up, right? But there's like a moral justification to bring in those teams. But how do you pick it? How do you? I can't think of a metric that picks. I mean, you could pick the captain of the semifinalist alliance that's higher seeded, maybe. But this still doesn't quite sit well necessarily with me. I don't know. It seems a little fuzzy. But what do the other district folks think?
I think everybody should just go to districts.
Well,
really.
I think so too.
Yep.
But or at least a lot of other people should go to districts. But
So to be 100% clear, basically they stopped giving out wild cards after the finalist. Is that what is the rule currently?
Exactly. So if you win an event, you show up to the event, you win chairmans, you roll through. Basically, like Hub City this weekend, right? So the winning alliance had 2 wild cards on it, which meant the moment that the finals happened, the alliance captain and their first pick of the other alliance. So 5 of the 6 teams were automatically going to World Championship. It just, regardless of the outcome of the match. And so if there happened to be a third wild card there, meaning all 3 had qualified, or in some cases where teams carry 2 wild cards, like multiple winners and things like that, if there's extra, they go unused, which basically means that the 6 spots for championship get degraded by multiple event winners without them. And so I'm like, just let everybody play.
Right. We could potentially see some sort of thing. There are a lot of regions where districts aren't necessarily the thing to do. They just don't have the team density. Maybe we see sort of a hybrid, and they look at point values based on awards and performance and where you finish up, and maybe they borrow that aspect from the districts, and that helps with some of the wildcard distribution beyond finalists.
Well, I mean, I think maybe the district model for points could be applied to waitlist teams too.
Yeah.
Right. That's the easy way to do it. Is don't do it at the that level, but rank the waitlist instead of being totally random. Add some criteria, obviously, how long it's been since your last championship, but also the reason that I love 2014 is not because of the result, obviously, but it's
that was good too, I guess, right?
That was a good one, but but because 2014 had the highest density of high performing robots, because we had a huge number of events that qualified a ton of winners and finalists, and it was only 4 divisions. So it was like playing in elims in 2014 you didn't know whether, I mean, the number 8 alliance had so much firepower, it was ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was a throwdown. And so when you doubled the number of teams, obviously the field got a little weaker. You split to multiple things. So we're kind of degrading the championship from a robot play. Now, obviously, first is more than about robots. But, you know, for people like me who are competitive and we want to play robots, you know, we want to see the best teams out there because that's who we want to play with, you know, play with the best to try to bring yourself up.
Yep. All right. Well, we've treaded dangerously close to 2 champs, which we promised we wouldn't talk about. So,
you said the words.
Oh, whatever. All right.
Twitch chat is going to explode.
Don't worry
just like
about it.
Yes.
Stephanie, what's the next question? Quickly. Assuage the masses. Put it up on the screen.
There we go.
All right. Your next question is the current elimination tiebreaker format the best and or fairest option to deal with tied matches in the elimination rounds? First off, the first tiebreaker is fairest spelled correctly? I can't read it, but anyway.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It
all right,
doesn't
either
say
way.
fairest, so.
That's true. Okay, that's good to me. So here's the thing about tiebreakers is that isn't it always fair if you know what the tiebreakers are before the match starts? Right? Because if you know the operating parameters, it doesn't matter what they are as long as you know what they are and they are achievable, right?
Okay.
Right, but the first the first tiebreaker is foul points, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
So the basis of that would be whoever played the cleanest match. However, I don't think that that's really what it ends up being. I think it's, you know, in this game, it's, you know, whoever didn't accidentally drive over a ball that they see and pop it through the side. I think there's too much random chance in that first tiebreaker for me. I would like to see, you know, something that teams can edge for and hedge their bets on. For example, if it was auto, like auto's the first tiebreaker in rankings, right? After qualification rounds. So in auto, then, you know, you would see teams gunning to increase their auto so that A, they would start off the match with a head start, and B, it would be that tiebreaker that they could try and edge out. Yeah,
that's true. I mean, at WPI we do we do our own robotics competition for like Vex robots, like called Savage Soccer. We come up with rules every year, and in the tiebreakers we've used foul points or fouls or penalty points as the first tiebreaker a few times, but especially in Vex games and games where you can just think a little bit more about the rules in some respects, you can sort of shape the rules to make penalties very rare. You know, I think that having penalties be your first tiebreaker is a good idea if penalties are a rare occurrence, and getting a penalty is a big deal. Mm-hmm. But I think you did mention something that I hadn't really thought of, is that having penalties, and especially because so many penalties can be easily missed, like having balls behind the wall, or some refs will call the possession of 2 balls differently than other referees do. Some regionals referee crews will call it differently.
Perimeter?
What is it?
Contact inside the frame perimeter. I think
contact inside the frame perimeter is kind of one of those. One of those.
That never happens, right?
Nope.
No, it's
robots
never. We got bumpers.
On robots, that's not inside the frame
perimeter. We have tire tracks on the top of our robot actually right now.
Wow, what a great
frame
decorations you guys added. That must be.
It was a DeLorean over the top of our robot. It was through time. It wasn't during a match. I swear.
The practice field's getting rough. No, I do see that. I do see that as being a bit of an issue. But all that being said, I think it's. I don't know. I think it's not optimal, but I would give First HQ a pass on this one. Because you got to give him a pass on something, right?
Well, the real question here is if it wasn't that the first tiebreaker, what would be the first tiebreaker, right? Is it boulders? Okay, well then now they're overranking boulders compared to the defenses, right? And they tried to even out that score, right? You know, 8 balls in the high goal is equal to they tried to do that. So now is it which defenses you go over? Well, that's based on which ones got put out you by your opponent, and they could be different for you. So it's like. It's really the only one that's actually a fair tiebreaker because there's too much variety in everything else. And
Auto.
Auto. I mean, I really like the auto
Yeah.
tiebreaker. To be
Yeah, but if a team a team can go out there and win without an auton, right? Against a team that can, right? That's again putting focus or raising up one specific element that, teams first is great because you can weigh your robot's ability and your design choices however you want, right? That's like saying, well, why don't we just give it to the people who had more hang points? I mean, it's the same. That's actually the exact same argument.
But
you know,
from the beginning, like I don't remember if it was Francis or Ty that said it, but I know that when we do our brainstorming, we talk about what the first tiebreaker is, and that's something we prioritize in our design. So if
we just try to figure out. Yeah, we just try to figure out how to win, and then don't worry about the ties. But that's no. I totally get it. This one doesn't really bother me that much. I'm kind of playing devil's advocate here.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah, I think to answer the question, both alliances are playing under the same rules, so it's not necessarily what is fair and what isn't fair. But I don't think that the foul points deciding is the best option, in my opinion.
How about this? To close it out, why don't we go with the Steve Caneb option and just say blue every time? The tie goes to blue alliance. Boom.
Throw back to the Israel regional from 6 years ago. Flip a coin and be done with it, right?
All right. Woo! What do we got? It's the Red Alliance. All right.
Congratulations.
It's funny because it happened. All right.
We had a quarterfinal match. We had quarterfinal 3 at week 1 in PNW go to the third tiebreaker.
Which is what?
I don't even remember. Boulders? I don't know.
Damn.
I like the one from the chat that has Rabbit just said, whichever alliance weighs less.
Yeah.
Total combined weight.
Featherweight in the finals.
Steve Caneb just commented in the chat, my stance is simpler. Both lose.
Oh, yeah, that's Steve. All right. I approve of that. All right. I think we've run this one to the ground. Let's go to our next question here. I think this is probably going to be the final question of the evening coming on up. One more after this. All right, cool. All right, how common will a 2-ball auto be by district championships?
Ooh,
I think not common at all.
Right. I don't think we'll see a single one in district championships. In world championships, though, that's a whole different story.
You don't think anybody in Michigan will have a 2-ball auto?
I think we might see. I think we'll see a 2-ball auto in the next 1 to 2 weeks.
5803s. That's where Evan is right now.
You know that we have one sensor on our robot, right?
Yep, it's the goal sensor.
I wish, man.
Oh, man. Greg, are you guys working on that sensor,
No.
Greg? That would be great.
Yeah, no, we're not working on that sensor. We're not working on a 2-ball auton. I think it'll be great for the teams that have it. I think we will see it.
Yeah.
I think the Poofs will bring it out. I think that Citrus will bring it out. There'll be some in Michigan, but you know what? It's not a high percentage shot either way, right? There are a lot of elite level teams right now who are shooting at less than 80% of their auton balls.
Yeah.
So I see it as, oh my God, it's going to be awesome if it happens on Einstein.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, if there's a team out there, and it would be the Cheesy Poofs or somebody like Citrus that will do it. If they can get it consistent and working every time, it's a huge advantage in the match. But I'm not betting on it But then again, I also, our 2004 championship was all resting on 254's 3-ball auton, so why not?
Yeah. And that's something I was going to bring up is I don't think a 2-ball auto is as powerful this year as a 2-ball auto was back in 2014.
Well, yeah.
It's harder and it's not as powerful is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have these teams basically. I really hope that teams don't sacrifice consistency in their 1-ball auto to try and get a 2-ball auto because very rarely will it be worth it.
Yep. I think there are certain circumstances where you would want to do it, where if you needed the Hail Mary or if it was a close match and you wanted to have an edge. But I think we'll see it. I don't honestly think we're going to see it out of a lot of district championships. I think we're going to see it out of a handful of very skilled teams. Which may or may not be a district championships. Dun, dun, dun. You get what I'm saying? So, I don't know. All right, let's go to our final question of the evening. Coming right up here. Next question is, does the 4th robot play at the championship? Question. How strategic is that selection going to be?
Ooh.
This is a good one. Greg, I think you have something to say on this one.
Yeah, I think I have something to say. The asker of this question might give this one away.
Yeah, well, hey, no, Rev Guy?
Rev Guy 2848, I wonder who that is.
Yeah.
He really likes motors.
But you know, so here's the thing. The fourth robot, you know, will definitely play. The ability to change up your strategy, like think about it like this. In the third robot and fourth robot, if we're looking at this right now saying that Auton is going to be big at champs and scaling is going to be big at champs, okay? You have a defensive powerhouse team that either you play or you don't. If you need those extra 10 points for the hang, you know, you put that guy in. You know, I think that there's a strategy that we haven't seen so much yet, which is just ball running, where it's the robot that can that's all they do is just ball run and drop in the corner, ball run and drop in the corner. And we're starting to see it a little bit, but that's going to come. So you have like a team with a decent intake that can't really do anything except score in the low goal every once in a while. So I think that there's some really interesting, subtle strategies, and people are going to be shooting in the dark at how it plays, right? So I definitely, if we're lucky enough to be in a picking situation at championship, which is, we would love that, but I don't know if we're that good. You know, I think you try to pick, you got to have a hanger in the waiting. You got to have, you know, obviously you pick there's a good Auton if you're there, but I think that there's some really interesting dynamics that you can play based on what it is, because the truth is, Ty, just like you said, the points don't matter, right? You just have to win, and so you want just enough points to win. You know, you need that extra ball in the tower that now has 10 balls. You need that one robot that can score one in the low goal. I think it's going to be a huge deal.
So the question is, do you think that those robots will exist deep into the third round of drafting at a championship field? Are the fields going to be deep enough to get those robots? I think the answer is maybe. I think that there'll be some fields that it doesn't happen at, but I think there's going to be most of the fields where you can get that, especially if you're the number one seed, which I think is actually the biggest gain in this regard, is that the one seed gets back-to-back picks third and fourth, so they can pick both kinds of robots they want and have them be up there in the ranks they're looking for.
Yeah, cheesecake hangers. Also, you know, there's somebody in the chat just brought this up. Have they announced when you need to declare who's playing in the match versus what defenses are on the field? Like you pull a fourth robot that can do the drawbridge by themselves, and with a special cheesecake or special mechanism, that's all they do. And you learn you've got the drawbridge, and then you make the call to put the fourth robot in because they can have that special ability.
Somebody just posted something with capital words in it, so it must be the answer.
Yep.
Okay. Alliance captain must report the lineup to the head referee or the designatee writing prior to the end of the preceding match, and lineups for quarterfinal 2 before the end of quarterfinal 1, which means so the lineups actually get submitted after the defenses.
Yeah,
you get
that's
the
true.
Defenses 2 matches before, so your lineup.
No, in a limbs you submit the matches 1 match before instead of 2.
Okay, so that's going to be a really interesting time.
It's the same time.
It's a timing game. That's interesting.
Well, it's actually even worse. It's not just timing. It's timing and when the defense coordinator can get the results to you. Right.
If teams are smart, so they don't have to wait until then to submit their defenses. If teams are smart and they want their defenses faster, they can put them in as soon as they know. I was defense coordinator at a couple of events this year, so I happen to know a little bit about this. There are a lot of teams, events that I saw, they were saying, you know what, give us the same defenses, kind of throughout the different rounds of the limbs. And it was definitely very interesting to see. But a lot of these teams are before, in quarters, as soon as they're coming off the field, with 3 matches to go before their next match, they were getting their defenses in for their second quarterfinal. As soon as they were coming off from semis, they were getting their defenses in. As long as teams are proactive, but it may very well be a strategy one alliance is going to wait until the very last second to
Yeah.
get their defenses in.
I think it's going to be a rare one, but there's an interesting thing because you're turning them in at the same time to two different people. So I don't know. I just nobody put the drawbridge out there. Come on, guys. It's bad for everyone.
Please, no one wants the drawbridge.
And one last interesting point. We've seen a lot of timeouts used. What happens if that fourth pick ends up getting swapped in so you can get extra repair time for one of your top three?
That's the point of them, right?
Yeah, theoretically,
right,
yeah.
Do we tend to see a lot of that, or is that fourth pick potentially going to be made for a robust robot that is maybe a clone of another robot that isn't so,
Yeah, I mean,
maybe that's a red herring.
I'll say this: 2014, in the second qualification round on Curie, my team sat out, and we played 74. And there were two reasons for this. One, we had a little repair that we need to make. Two, we didn't want a cold alliance, a cold partner going out on the field if we needed them later in the thing. So we definitely were out of that alliance for that match because we had a repair going on. But it was not worth it in the quarterfinals to take a timeout. So I know that I've been involved in that situation, but who knows? I mean, the timeout. If the fourth robot is really much weaker than the third, the timeout is probably better than your than playing your fourth sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. I think that we're definitely going to see a lot more fourth robots than we probably ever have before. Even though there's going to be actually probably not, I think not a lot of cheese kicking going on. I mean, if you can put a 118 hanger on somebody, sweet. But I think it's going to be harder than it seems. But
it's definitely going to be harder than last year. Than King Grab.
Well, yeah, last year the game was just cut off whatever was on top and put your own thing on. But that's a story for another episode. So I think having done our last question, that's going to be it for this episode of GameSense tonight. Another huge thank you to Greg. Greg, thank you so much for doing the show. We loved having you on. You've been a fabulous guest. You have a lot of really great things to say, which was really awesome.
Well, I'm really glad to be here, and anytime if you have an empty slot or a last minute fill in, I'm around.
We got that recorded, so watch out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, everybody, good luck to everybody playing this weekend. Good luck to Apex Robotics. They'll be at the district championship. Also, good luck to Team 190. They're going to be at the Montgomery district in New Jersey. We're not permanently going there, just for now. And is Pine Tree this weekend? Pine Tree's this weekend too, right?
Yeah. Holy crap.
Good night. Good luck to Team 319 at Pine Tree.
Yeah. Somehow I have to get from Pennsylvania to Maine. I don't know how that's going to happen.
They don't check. They don't look for passports. It's okay. So with that, and thank you to everybody for watching. Hope you enjoyed the show, and hope that you have a great week as well and a great week of first. So for everybody else on GameSense, good luck, and let's talk some robots later on. Bye-bye, everybody.
Good night.
See ya. Bye.